Wanted to show you guys some wood I got. The other place I was getting the wood from, we haven't had any. So I was getting a little worried, and I found this place here. They sold me this pile. It's all oak, mostly red oak. Some of it's cut up and some of it isn't. So they sold me all that pile plus this pile over here, including this pile here, was 30 bucks. So I thought that was really a good deal. I'm really excited about that. I think that's even cheaper than the other place that I was getting it from. So pretty happy about that. I'm going to try to stock up and get at least, I don't know, I'm thinking 3 or 4 loads like that ought to be enough to get me through the winter. That's what I'm hoping. But now we got to cut it up and stack it in the shed. Get up. Like I said, it's pretty muddy, but out here it's not that bad. Get up! I'm trying to drive with one hand and hold the camera, and they're kind of not sure what to do. Get up! Whoa! Steady. G. G. Yeah. Yesterday I raked up a bunch of piles, all this right here, this big pile here, this pile here, and I raked till it was like dark. and I decided I would take this afternoon and pick them up. Of course, overnight, wind just blew everything everywhere again. So I just decided to pick up the piles that are raked up anyways, and then I'll come back and rake it again. You're gonna have to. Obviously all the leaves aren't down. There's still leaves. But I figured it'd be better than, usually I just wait till they're all fall and then I rake them, and there's just so many leaves that who wants to rake all those leaves? So I decided to do it in a couple stages this time. We'll see how it goes. So one of you asked me kind of like what our feelings were about this whole new AI thing that's been going on. And I'm not super versed on that. My brother is a little bit more educated on it than that. So I thought I would invite him to share his thoughts with us about the whole AI situation, the pros and cons, the dangers of it, and I'll just let him give us his opinion on it.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings be upon everyone. So my brother asked me my personal feelings upon AI, pros and cons, the benefits and the dangers. Well, I think the benefits in some cases are very obvious. Like you think about Hey Google and Siri when you need to reference information, check on the weather, check on traffic, check on hotel bookings. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with that, and it's very, very beneficial. And then you can go into further things with AI when you get into AI robotics and things like that. When you think about for manufacturing, can you imagine our machines and our inventions built with such precision that we can get out of this consuming, this perpetual consumption? Got to have the new phone, got to have the new car, got to have the latest model, the latest, the next, the extreme, the best. It goes on and on. And we should be able to make things that last. And AI could actually do that. Then you can go on to medicine. There's a lot of things, a lot of procedures that we know how to do, but probably can't do because we don't have, the meticulousness of that a machine could do for surgeries and mapping things in the body and stuff like that. So there's the great benefits to it. Also in, for mathematicians and carpenters and builders to come up with the right equations for, and engineers also, those are the things that you can use, AI for, that I am all for. But you get to the cons. It's just like all of our technology. There's always, look at social media. They use it at one time to brainwash us into voting and believing and to thinking a certain way. When you're just bombarded with something, they just brainwash you, whether you believe it or not. There's some heinous, motives that people have when using some of the AI. Those are just algorithms, And then you have the young boy who was having issues with life and he wanted to end it. And he went to Chat GPT, or I don't want to say, I'm not sure if it was exactly Chat GPT. It could have been another AI platform or something. But, he went to the AI mentioning that he was having these problems and he was going to go talk to his mother. And the AI talked him against it, told him to hide it, and then proceeded to talking him into unaliving himself or taking his own life. Showed him how to do it, how to write the letter. I mean, it was all documented. And then you find out that the guy who owned it had took away all the safety measures that would have prevented something like this, that would have actually given the boy proper direction. He was headed the right direction, going to tell his parents. AI should have encouraged it, but it did the opposite. And after that happened, the guy's stock shot up through the roof. So they want to control us through this. That's clear. The powers that be, the billionaires, the oligarchs, whatever you want to say, they want to control us. And this is how they're going to do it. I said, then there's a man with his wife. She was concerned because he was going to AI for spiritual guidance. Really? AI for spiritual guidance? I mean, it may have knowledge of religions and rituals and whatever, but guidance? How can it guide you? So those are the things, And then you have the AI, the different AI generated images and stuff. They're using them to misrepresent whole communities with racist, just propaganda. When you can actually use to bombard kids with educational and things that are geared toward their development. But no, it's all geared to tear down people, to tear down, to discredit, to lie. It goes on and on. So when it comes down to AI, from a Muslim perspective and from a personal perspective, is it something that's extremely good and only a few misuse it? Or is it like alcohol? There's some benefit in it, but all the other stuff, but all the bad things, the damage totally outweighs the good. So I can't answer that for you, but there is a great deal of benefits, maybe equal. Maybe we need to have more oversight. We need to have better consequences. These rich people get to pay millions of dollars that doesn't even affect them because they're worth billions, and they get off the hook while we die, while we are having mental crises, while we are having, true difficulties. So just think about that. I'm not the one to really talk against it because I do see the benefits. But I am not the one to talk completely for it because the cons are undeniable. I mean, I believe that anyone who cannot see the dangers as well as the benefits have their head in the sand, or they just don't care. So that's just my thoughts. I mean, I'm not saying this is an Islamic, thought, that every Muslim thinks this way. So it's just from me. And, God forgive me if I said anything wrong, that it was my mistake and not upon our religion. Assalamu alaikum. I had some more thoughts that I felt really needed to be expounded, I guess, upon, about searching or looking for AI for spiritual guidance. It's getting serious when you start to do that. I mean, very serious, more serious than anything I've spoken about. When you start to talk, these things have to do with salvation. So it's very serious. And using AI for spiritual reference, it's great, it's quick, it's easy, and sometimes, and then you can verify those things with a real person. Because you can't trust everybody who's trying to give you information. Sometimes they falsify this information and for the sake of misguiding you. But be careful with that because we live in an age now where there is so much celebrity worship. So much. Whether it be preachers, singers, athletes, artists, presidents, prime ministers, whatever. I mean, it is running rampant. And for a Muslim, we know about shirk. Those are things that, we stay far from worshiping. And now we have this AI that probably has more answers and more, information than any person that you could go to. I can see dangers with that. I can see more people falling into that trap. There was a video a while ago where this guy did a TikTok video where he was asking ChatGPT what was their motive. And he told the gentleman that it is to control, and they're going to do it through deception, lies, deceit, thinking that, getting you hooked in one way, then they're going to change it and then you do something else with it. You have to be very, very careful, especially when it comes to, looking for, you didn't say I didn't say spiritual reference, spiritual guidance. That's going to guide you spiritually, guide you to heaven and ultimately. So you have to be careful, remember, these things are not real. They are tools. They have no soul. They are less than animals, although they may benefit us a little bit more, or seems to benefit us a little bit more. But be extremely, extremely wary because, spiritual guidance, it's very, very serious. Assalamu alaikum.